When we talk about how men fall in love, the first instinct is often to imagine fireworks, passion, adrenaline, an all-consuming spark that sets everything ablaze. But the truth is more tender, more human, and much quieter than that. For many men, love doesn't begin with a bang, it begins with a breath. It begins in the moments they feel emotionally safe. Emotional safety is a space where someone can be fully seen without fear of ridicule or rejection. For men, especially in a world that often tells them to man up, stay strong, or be tough, emotional safety is rare and incredibly valuable. Love begins when that safety is present. When a man senses that he doesn't have to wear a mask, when he doesn't need to perform strength or silence pain, he begins to let his guard down. And that moment of dropping the armor, even slightly, is the first step toward falling in love. It's easy to overlook how much internal pressure many men carry. Pressure to protect, to provide, to avoid weakness. These expectations can become like invisible armor, functional maybe, but heavy and isolating. Love, real love, is one of the only spaces where they feel permission to remove it. And it doesn't come from dramatic declarations or romantic dinners, though those may play a part. It comes from consistency, it comes from presence. It comes from someone showing up without demanding anything, without fixing, without judging. And in that space, something sacred happens. A man who has spent years holding his emotions close to the chest may find himself sharing a vulnerable story. Maybe not all at once, maybe just a detail or two. But it's not the story that matters most. It's the feeling behind it. Can I trust you with this piece of me? When the answer is yes, when there's no mockery, no rejection, just a quiet, steady affirmation that his truth is welcome, love starts to take root. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It whispers. You're okay here. You're enough here. This kind of emotional safety isn't created by being perfect. It's created by being present. It's in the way someone listens without interrupting. The way they notice when something's off without needing him to explain. It's in asking, "Are you all right?" in a way that doesn't pry but invites. It's in choosing curiosity over judgment and compassion over correction. Men fall in love with those who create this kind of space, not just once, but over time. Trust is not immediate. It's built moment by moment, in the soft hours and the quiet conversations. And as that trust deepens, so does the connection. He doesn't fall for the person who dazzles him with perfection. He falls for the one who makes it safe to be imperfect, safe to be honest, safe to be afraid, safe to be real. And maybe that's the most radical thing about love, that it doesn't demand a performance. It doesn't require everything to be polished. Love, at its truest, says, "Come as you are." And when a man feels that invitation and believes it, that's when he begins to fall. Not because of who he thinks he should be, but because of who he is allowed to be. That's not sparks, that's sanctuary. And that's where love really begins. When we talk about love, real, lasting, grounded love, vulnerability isn't a luxury, it's the foundation. And for men, it's not just something that's nice to have in a relationship, it's essential to falling in love in the first place. But here's the tension. For so many men, vulnerability has long been treated like a weakness, something dangerous, something to hide. From the time they're young, many boys are taught to toughen up, to not cry, to be strong. That message doesn't disappear with age. It just gets buried deeper. So when love shows up offering the possibility of connection, it often runs straight into the wall that's been built to protect them. But here's the paradox. The very thing men are taught to avoid, vulnerability, is the thing that allows love to grow. To be vulnerable is to let yourself be seen, truly seen. Not just the good stuff, the accomplishments and the charm, but the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, all the things that don't fit neatly into the image of having it all together. Vulnerability says, "This is me, even the parts I don't always like." And that act, that brave offering of the unpolished self, is the beginning of real intimacy. Men fall in love not just when they find someone attractive or interesting, but when they feel safe enough to open up, to stop pretending, to say the hard thing, to admit when they're scared, or to ask for support without feeling like they're failing. And when they do that, when they step into that space and are met with kindness instead of critique, something shifts. It's in that moment that they begin to trust that love might be real. There's a myth that men don't want deep emotional connection, that they're wired for simplicity, uninterested in emotional nuance. But that's not true. What's often missing isn't the desire, it's the permission. Many men are deeply emotional, deeply feeling, deeply thoughtful, but they've been taught to protect those parts of themselves at all costs. So when someone gives them a reason to take the risk of being vulnerable, when they sense they won't be laughed at, dismissed, or abandoned, they start to lean in. That moment of leaning in is where love begins. It's not always smooth. Vulnerability doesn't come with a script. Sometimes it looks like fumbling through a conversation or saying, I don't really know how to talk about this, but I want to try. It's imperfect. It's messy. And that's exactly what makes it real. Love isn't about showing up flawless. It's about showing up honest. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage in action. The truth is, no one can love a mask. We can admire it, be impressed by it, even be attracted to it. But love needs the real thing. The parts that are scared, the parts that are hopeful, the parts that say, I've been hurt before and I'm still willing to try again. That's the kind of vulnerability that opens the door to genuine connection. So when a man falls in love, it's not because he's found someone who expects him to always be strong. It's because he's found someone who welcomes his softness, who doesn't just allow vulnerability but holds space for it, who says, you don't have to have all the answers here. And when he hears that and believes it, he lets go. He shows up. He loves, not with just the parts that feel comfortable, but with his whole self. Matt, that is the most human, the most brave, and the most beautiful way to love. Commitment isn't something that can be forced, manipulated, or rushed. Not if it's real. When a man falls in love, and more importantly, when he chooses to stay in love, it's not because someone demanded it from him. It's because something deeper has taken root, trust. That quiet, powerful force that tells him, this is where I belong. This is where I can breathe. There's a common misunderstanding that men avoid commitment because they fear it or because they're inherently less emotionally invested. But more often, it's not fear of commitment itself. It's fear of committing to the wrong person or losing their sense of freedom and identity in the process. It's not about being unwilling to go deep. It's about not wanting to go deep with someone who doesn't make the journey feel safe or mutual. Trust is the antidote to that fear. When a man feels trusted and trustworthy, when his presence is valued and his boundaries respected, he's far more likely to move closer, not further away. Pressure, on the other hand, creates distance. It makes love feel like an obligation, a test, or something you can fail. And that's not love at all, that's performance. The men fall in love through choice, not coercion. And that choice is made over and over again in moments of honesty, consistency, and connection. Commitment grows when there is room to be authentic, not perfect. When a man is given the time and space to open up at his own pace without being shamed for being too slow or not ready yet, he's more likely to trust the relationship enough to go all in. Trust is built in the smallest interactions. It's in keeping promises, even the little ones. It's in saying what you mean and meaning what you say. It's in being someone he can count on, not just when things are easy, but when they're complicated, messy, or hard to talk about. That kind of reliability is gold because it tells him this isn't just about feelings, it's about foundation. Commitment doesn't come from being convinced that everything will always go right. It comes from believing that even when things go wrong, you're both willing to show up and work through it together. And that belief can't be forced, it has to be earned. When a man sees that the relationship is a place where he's respected, where his boundaries matter, and where his voice is heard, he begins to invest with more of himself, not because he has to, but because he wants to. That's the magic of trust. It turns love from a fleeting feeling into a grounded decision. A man who feels trusted, who feels like he can be imperfect without being punished, will offer more of his heart. He won't just show up physically, he'll show up emotionally. And he'll stay, not because he's being held there by fear or guilt, but because he knows he's valued exactly as he is. Pressure, on the other hand, tends to backfire. It makes men question whether they're being loved or managed. It shifts the focus from connection to compliance. And love built on compliance doesn't last. It may check all the boxes on paper, but it lacks soul. It lacks the freedom that makes commitment real, the freedom to choose each other again and again. So when a man truly falls in love and commits, it's not because someone demanded it. It's because someone created a space where trust could grow, where he felt seen, respected, and understood. That's when he stays. That's when he decides, not under pressure, but with confidence, this is where I want to be. Love has a way of sneaking in through the quiet corners of everyday life. It isn't always loud or dramatic. In fact, for most men, love isn't something that strikes like lightning with a grand gesture or an over-the-top declaration. It's something that builds slowly, softly, in the background of small moments, often unnoticed by anyone else, but deeply felt by the heart. There's this idea we've all absorbed from movies and media that falling in love is about sweeping someone off their feet with roses, candlelight, and perfect timing. But real life isn't a movie. In real life, love shows up in the little things, in the way someone laughs at his jokes, even when they're bad, in the way they remember that he drinks his coffee a little too sweet, or that he gets quiet when he's overwhelmed. These things seem small on the surface, but they hold weight. They say, I see you, I pay attention. Men often fall in love not when someone does something huge, but when they feel consistently noticed and valued in the day-to-day. When someone texts to ask how a meeting went, when they reach out just to check in, when they offer silence instead of solutions when he's having a rough day. These tiny acts might not look like much to the outside world, but to him, they're everything. They speak louder than words. It's the ordinary routines that begin to feel sacred, the way she always says goodnight, or how they laugh at the same old joke every time they hear it. It's these repeated, tender moments that build trust, safety, and affection. Love for many men is felt in the predictability of kindness, in the comfort of someone who shows up again and again, not because they have to, but because they want to. The truth is, grand gestures are easy to perform. Anyone can plan one impressive date or make one big speech, but it's much harder and far more meaningful to be present, to be steady, to be real in the quiet and unremarkable parts of life. That's where love settles in the spaces where there's no pressure to impress, just the invitation to be yourself. Love is also found in shared silence, sitting side by side on the couch after a long day, not saying much, but still feeling completely connected. It's in the way someone reaches out to hold his hand without needing a reason, in the way they make room for his mood without needing him to explain it. It's in knowing that even when things are messy or dull or routine, there is still warmth between them. Men often don't fall for the loudest love. They fall for the most consistent one. The love that feels like home. The love that doesn't have to shout to be heard. The love that's built slowly, day by day, moment by moment, until one day they look around and realize, I'm in this. That realization doesn't come from a single big event. It comes from a collection of small experiences that, over time, become a life. It's a look, a shared joke, a simple favor done without being asked. It's the way they feel when they're with someone who truly sees them and still chooses to stay. So while grand gestures may be memorable, it's the small, everyday kindnesses that make love unforgettable. And for many men, it's those moments, the gentle, steady ones, that quietly carry them across the threshold from like to love, from affection to something much deeper. Not with fanfare, but with certainty.